Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa allazina amanu wa amilus solihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المؤمن ميراث المؤمن سبحان ربك رب العزة أما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. आज का मौजू आज का बयान बेसिकली इंशाल्लाह there is going to be a tafsil, a commentary, an explanation of a hadith in Mubarakah by Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith is narrated by Hazrat Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the text of the hadith is al-mu'minu miratul mu'min. A mu'min is like a mirror to a believer, or a mu'min is like a mirror for a believer. Inshallah, we are going to explore the different aspect, different dimensions, different angles, different views, different ways in which this hadith can be read and understood, inshallah, and we are going to try to understand it in a lot of depth and detail. Whenever we are walking, usually in the shopping mall, or whenever we are walking from a place where there is a mirror, most of us have this adat to stop and look at ourselves in the mirror, to check ourselves out in the mirror, right? More so nowadays in men as compared to women, and historically in women, they like to spend a lot of time in front of the mirror. So what is it? The first question is, what is it that makes the mirror so attractive or irresistible और पुरकशिश, राइट? ऐसी क्या चीज़ है जो शीशे को इतना पुरकशिश बनाती है? इसका जवाब ये है, the obvious answer would be, considering we have eyes in front of our face, हमारी आंखें हमारी शक्ल के सामने हैं, which does not give us a 360-degree view. So in order to look at ourselves, in order to see if our clothes are proper, in order to see if our hair are proper, in order to see for women if the makeup etc is proper, we are looking fine, there is no dirt or gand on ourselves. That is why the mirror is required and the mirror is so attractive. But there is another aspect, एक और पहलू है शीशे के बारे में, आईने के बारे में, और वो ये है कि जब इंसान आईने में अपने आप को देखता है और ये चीज मालूम होती है उसको, that I am looking fine, I am looking proper, I am looking up to the standards that I've set for myself, that gives him happiness and self-confidence, right? Psychologists actually use this technique in order to handle various body image issues in patients. It is called mirror exposure therapy. So now that we know the two purposes of mirror, first is to show the reflection and second is to increase the self-esteem, we are inshallah going to read the hadith and inshallah try to understand what the various dimensions of this hadith. The hadith Mubarakah is an Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam qala al-mu'minu miratul mu'min. Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrates from Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said that a mu'min is like a mirror for a fellow mu'min. Mu'min जो है अपने भाई के लिए, अपने मोमिन भाई के लिए, दूसरे मोमिन के लिए शीशे के आईने के मानंद है या शीशे के मानंद है, राइट? अगर इस हदीस मुबारक का देखें तो हमें ये समझ आता है इसमें टोटल 3 अल्फाज हैं, राइट? अल मोमिनु मिरातुल मोमिन, और उसमें से भी 2 लफ्ज are the same. So effectively this hadith consists of 2 words. This hadith consists of 2 words, but the depth and the that there's a huge amount of information and understanding we can get from this hadith mubarakah. Hadith mubarakah. To move before moving ahead, we have to understand one thing. How is it that the mirror itself, how is it that एक शीशा एक आईना जो है, एक शीशा एक आईने के बारे में ऐसी क्या चीज है which actually makes it which actually has a relationship with a mu'min or a Muslim, right? So moving onwards, we are going to see the different purposes and attributes of a mirror and see how they should be reflected in the attributes and purposes of a Muslim also, right? The basic purpose of the mirror is to show the reflection and to advise us. शीशे का आईने का बेसिक मकसद होता है दूसरे शख्स के ऐबों को, दूसरे शख्स को उसको उसके ऐबों की तरफ मुतवज्जे करना. अगर किसी शख्स की नाक पे, सर पे किसी जगह मट्टी डर्ट वगैरह लगी है तो मिरर क्या करता है, वो डर्ट मट्टी वगैरह दिखाता है, उसका रिफ्लेक्शन दिखाता है, उसका अक्स दिखाता है, गोया फॉल्ट्स पॉइंट आउट करता है दूसरे का, right? Similarly, one of the basic purposes of a Muslim is to advise others, to inform others regarding the faults or the flaws in them with a lot of hikmat. With a lot of hikmat. What does this mean? इसका क्या मतलब है? वन ऑफ आवर असातिज़ा राइट्स दिस, आईना इंसानी जिस्म का ज़ाहिरी मैल, गंदगी और उयूब दिखलाता है. इसी तरह एक मोमिन भी अपने भाई को पुरखुलूस नसीहत के जरिए उसके बातनी उयूब पर आगाह करता है, right? So the key word over here is पुरखुलूस नसीहत के जरिए. So when a moment points out the flaws, points out the issues, points out the sins in a fellow mu'min, fellow Muslim, just like a mirror points out the flaws and problems in a fellow, in the person who's looking at it. The moment does it with a lot of purkhulus nasihat. That means he does it with a lot of hikmat. He does it with a lot of understanding. He does it with a lot of care. He does it with a lot of foresight. What does this mean? That a person does not point out the flaws of the other person just randomly, brutally, bluntly, without considering for the other person's emotions and sensitivities. क्या मकसद है इसका? अगर मैं कल को रोड पे जा रहा हूँ और मुझे एक शख्स नजर आए जो फोन पे बात कर रहा है और जोर जोर से फोन पे किसी को गालियां निकाल रहा है, राइट? ही इज कर्सिंग द अदर पर्सन लाउडली, राइट? इफ आई गो टू हिम एंड आई hold him by the collar and I give him 2 slaps and tell him कि ये क्या कर रहे हो, गलत कर रहे हो, गुनाह कर रहे हो, right? So that person is actually going to run away and he's not going to first and foremost talk to me, and he's never going to be attracted towards the religion, and the biggest thing, he's never going to correct himself, right? So purkhulus nasihat means that a person corrects the other person's behavior, other person's points the other person's flaws with a lot of hikmat and foresight, such that the other person does not actually get repelled from the religion, get repelled from that person, and by extension from religion, right? पुरखुलूस तरीके से नसीहत देना, एडवाइस करना, that is one of the biggest, that is one of the most important things when it comes to advising or dawah. And this is something we see in the seerah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. uh, Immensely it is there everywhere, wherever Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is doing dawah, wherever Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving nasiyah, wherever Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is advising others, inviting others to deen, or handling situations with other people, we see that he does it with a lot of purkhulus nasiyat, with a lot of hikmah, with a lot of foresight, with a lot of understanding. That is the basic way we are supposed to give advice to the other, right? The mirror does this with certain attributes. Firstly and foremost, it does it softly and caringly, right? आईना नरमी और प्यार से अपनी बात समझाता है. आईना इंसान को निहायत लताफत और नज़ाकत से उसको उसके ऐबों पर मुत्तले करता है, राइट? इसके पास कोई लकड़ी या डंडा नहीं होता जिससे वो ऐबदार जगह की तरफ इशारा करके मुतनब्बे करे. इसी तरह एक मोमिन भी अपने भाई को बड़े प्यार भरे अंदाज और नरम गुफ्तगू से उसके ऐबों पर मुत्तले करता है, क्योंकि इसका मकसद ऐब जोई नहीं बल्कि इस्लाह होता है. So when a mirror points out, mirror does not point out, mirror does not pick up a danda, right, and hits the person कि तुम्हारी नाक पे गंद लगी है, उसको ठीक करो जल्दी से, right? He does not do that. He does not hold the person by the collar and pushes him against the wall and tells him, fix this, whatever you have on your nose, right? He does not do that. This is a very important aspect of dawa and nasiha. Like I pointed out, a moment should also actually be doing the same while giving nasiha, while doing dawa, while informing or telling other people regarding the religion, right? And there is one basic reason behind this, because the maqsad of a moment is never to point out the flaws of others. The maqsad of the moment is never to point out the issues in others. The maqsad of the moment is never to anger the other person. It is only to do the islah of the other person without any personal gain or the self gain or self without any faida to one's own self, right? If this is the case, then it should be very easy for us to advise others with a lot of hikmah and with narmi and pyar, with narmi, with a lot of love and softly and caringly. The other way, the mirror advises others is it does it silently and secretly, right? When a mirror points out the flaws, अगर मेरी नाक पे मट्टी लगी है तो आईना जब मेरी नाक पे मट्टी का लगा होना मुझे रिफ्लेक्शन दिखाएगा, तो how does it do it? It does it silently. It does not say anything from its mouth, right? It does not say anything. It does not scream, oh, iski naak pe laga hua hai, this is a dirty person, he has a flaw in him, he has problems in him, right? It does not, the mirror does not do that, right? And what does it do in other than being silent? It is very secretive, right? The next person who comes in front of the mirror, it does not tell that person कि देखो तुमसे पहले जो बंदा आया था ना, वो खिजर आया था, उस पे ये फ्लॉ था, उसको ये प्रॉब्लम्स था. These are exact two सिफात of a मोमिन. Also मोमिन के अंदर ये दोनों सिफात होना जरूरी है. ये दोनों मोमिन की बेसिक सिफात है कि मोमिन जब दूसरे को नसीहत करता है, दूसरे को उसके गुनाह पर मुत्तले करता है, मुतवज्जे करता है, मुतनब्बे करता है, दूसरे के पॉइंट्स फ्लॉस पॉइंट आउट करता है, फ्लॉस के बारे में उसको आगाह करता है इखलास से उसकी इस्लाह करने के लिए, तो ये वाला काम बहुत साइलेंटली करता है, विदाउट मेकिंग श्योर दैट नो वन एल्स overhears it, making sure he does it himself without involving others, right, to the best of his capability. And secondly, he makes sure that this remains a secret between him and the person who has that flaw. He does not go about broadcasting the flaws and sins of the other person to others, right? To others. The basic idea and the reason for this also is because he wants the other person's islah to happen. He has no personal gain. He does not want to दूसरे की इज्जत कम करना उसका मकसद नहीं होता, दूसरे को जलील करना उसका मकसद नहीं होता, बल्कि उसका मकसद होता है दूसरे की किसी तरह इसलाह करना कि वो अपने इस गुनाह वगैरह को छोड़ दे. The third way, the mirror actually serves its purpose. तीसरी 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 चीज जो मिरर जिस तरह मिरर नसीहा करता है, it does it with honesty and ikhlas, right? It isn't tinted and it reflects all colors equally. आईना बेहतरीन मुस्लिह होता है, वो सिर्फ एक मरतबा ऐब दिखाकर अपना किरदार ख़त्म नहीं कर देता, बल्कि जब तक वो ऐब ख़त्म ना हो जाए वो अपना मुखलिसाना किरदार निभाता रहता है. इसी तरह एक मोमिन भी अपने भाई को ऐब बताकर अपने फ़र्ज से अपने आप को सुबुकदोश नहीं समझता, बल्कि इस ऐब के इजाले के लिए भरपूर मुआवनत और कोशिश करता रहता है, right? So the mirror does the correction of the flaws persistently, right? It does not just point out the flaw in a person one time and then remain silent and stops caring about it, but it points out the flaw of the person as many times as it interacts with the person or as many times as the flaw remains, right? मेरी नाक पे अगर मेरे सर पे कोई मैल वगैरह लगी हुई है, मैं शीशे के सामने एक टाइम जाऊंगा और उसको करेक्ट नहीं करूंगा, फिर वापस घूम के शीशे के सामने आऊंगा, it is going to show that to me again, right? This is a sign of ikhlas, right? When a moment points out the flaws or wants to correct the sins of a person, a fellow moment, what he does is he's persistent in correcting it. He does not just point it out one time and then retracts from pointing it out again. He does not just point it out once and then stops himself. He does not just point it out once and then remains silent after that. As many times as he's able to point it out, yet again with purkhulus nasihat, with a lot of hikmah and foresight, he does it. बार बार फ्लॉज को पॉइंट आउट करता है, उसी फ्लॉ को पॉइंट आउट करता है जब तक कि वो करेक्ट नहीं हो सकता, जब तक कि उसकी इस्लाह नहीं हो सकती, हो जाती. इखलास से काम करता है और इस्लाह करने वाला होता है, इस्लाह करने वाला होता है, right? It isn't tinted. It reflects all colors equally. This is also part of it, that the mirror actually does not it shows all colors equally, right? That is also a sifat of a mirror. And similarly, this is a sifat of a moment, that it actually, in order to correct the flaws in others, the correct the sins in others, do the islah of others, it actually shows the reflection the way it is, right? It does not put a filter on it. It actually shows what it is, the reality of the other person, in order to make sure that the faults are corrected, the islah is done, right? The mirror shows the reality, the truth. It is straight and blunt, right? आईना जो है हकीकत का तर्जुमान होता है, and this is very important, राइट? आईने के सामने अगर कोई शख्स जाके खड़ा होता है, तो ना आईना उसको ज्यादा उसके हुस्न को ज्यादा एग्जैजरेट करता है, ना ही उसके फ्लॉज को ज्यादा एग्जैजरेट करता है, ना ही उसकी ब्यूटी को ज्यादा एग्जैजरेट करता है. इट शोज एग्जैक्टली व्हाट इट इज. इट इज स्ट्रेट एंड ब्लंट इन शोइंग दैट. Similarly, a moment when he is advising the other person, when he is giving dawa, when he is talking to the other person, when he's trying to, when he is trying to correct the flaws of the other person, he shows exactly the correct picture to the other person. He does not exaggerate a flaw, and he does not exaggerate the beauty of the other person. कोई अच्छी सिफत को भी बढ़ा चढ़ा के नहीं सुनाता दूसरे को, ना ही वो खुशामद करता है दूसरे की, ना ही दूसरे की, आप समझे, दूसरे को ईगो बूस्ट देता है, और ना ही किसी बुरे एस्पेक्ट को, किसी फ्लॉ को बढ़ा चढ़ा के बताता है, राइट? इट द मोमेंट is straight and blunt, irrespective of what the other person feels. Of course, it is in the moment is always caring and soft while pointing it out, but it points out, it tells the other person exactly the reality of the situation, right? Conversely, you have to understand that what good there is, the moment points that bit out also. ऐसा नहीं होता कि अगर एक शख्स में एक अच्छी सिफत है, तो उस अच्छी सिफत को बिल्कुल ही इग्नोर कर दे. जो अच्छी सिफत है उसको एक्नॉलेज करता है, रिकग्नाइज करता है, और उसको अप्रिशिएट करता है. सिमिलरली जो बुरी सिफत, और जितना है उतना करता है, और सिमिलरली जो बुरी सिफत है उसके बारे में उतना ही बताता है, जैसा जैसा कि आईना करता है. इट शोज द प्रेजेंट, नॉट द पास्ट और द हिस्ट्री, राइट? It shows the present, not the past or the history. And this is a very important aspect. This is a very big problem in our माशरा, कि आईने के बारे में हम पहले सुने कि आईना डज नॉट रिकॉर्ड हिस्ट्री. आईने के सामने एक शख्स आता है, और अगर उसके अंदर फॉल्ट होता है, तो आईना shows that fault, right? If I have mitti on my head, the mirror shows that fault in me. But if I go and correct it and come back to it maybe 6 months later, it does not point out, अच्छा 6 महीने पहले तुम्हारे अंदर ये वाला फ्लॉ था ना, right? It does not do that. The mirror does not do that. The mirror does not record history or remember the past, right? It forgets once the person has corrected himself. This is this is exactly a sifat of a moment also. The moment does not remember the history. The moment does not remember the past. The moment forgets the past when the person has reformed himself, right? एक शख्स ने अगर अपने अंदर से ऐबों को, गुनाहों को निकाल दिया, और वो आपसे 6 महीने बाद, 8 महीने बाद, 1 साल, 2 साल बाद आके मिलता है, तो 2 साल बाद आप उसको ये नहीं कहते, अच्छा 2 साल बाद तुम 2 साल पहले ये गुनाह कर रहे थे ना, तुम क्या अब सही हुए होगे, राइट? उसके गुनाहों पर, उसके गुजरे में माजी के गुनाहों पर, उसकी पिछली जिंदगी पे यू नेवर पॉइंट आउट और रिमेंबर, नेवर पॉइंट्स आउट or recalls the sifat of a person, the bad sifat of a person, that the person has already left and transformed himself, right? It comes in a hadith which is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, whereby Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if anyone covers up if anyone covers up a Muslim, that means if anyone covers up the sins of a Muslim, Allah will cover him up on the day of resurrection, right? अगर कोई शख्स अपने मोमिन भाई के गुनाहों पर पर्दा डालता है, तो अल्लाह सुब्हानहू तआला उस शख्स के पर पर्दा डालेंगे क़यामत के दिन. So remember and understand that this is a very important aspect, that a moment does not point out the flaws of the history. The next bit is, it points out, it shows the reflection better if it is untainted and clean, right? It shows the reflection better if it is untainted and clean. शफाफियत से। आईना जितना साफ शफाफ होता है उतना ही शफाफ अक्कासी करता है। इसी तरह एक मोमिन भी खुद जितना नेक परहेजगार होगा, जितना उसका किरदार साफ और शफाफ होगा, वो अपने भाई की उतनी ही वाज़ेह और दुरुस्त तस्वीर देख भी सकेगा और दिखा भी सकेगा। राइट, दिस इज वेरी इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड इन इटसेल्फ that the cleaner the mirror is, the better it would be able to point out the flaws. So the cleaner we are, the cleaner we are internally, the cleaner we are by our hearts, the better we will be able to do the nasiha, we are better we will be able to advise others regarding their problems. अगर हम खुद ही साफ शफाफ नहीं होंगे, अगर एक गुनाह हमारे अंदर खुद मौजूद होगा, तो उस गुनाह की इस्लाह करना दूसरे के अंदर बेइंतहा मुश्किल होगा। क्योंकि जब एक शख्स, बात सुनिएगा तवज्जो से, जब एक शख्स के अंदर एक गुनाह खुद मौजूद होता है, तो वो शख्स दर हकीकत अगर दीनी शऊर रखता हो, दीनी इस्तेज़ार हो, दीनी अक्ल और सोच हो उसके अंदर, तो अमूमन अमूमन वो शख्स उस गुनाह को अपने लिए जस्टिफाई कर रहा होता है। आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल। इफ अ पर्सन टॉक्स टू अ namehram woman, if a man talks to a namehram woman, he usually, and if he has dini istizar, and if he considers himself to be a Muslim, and if he considers himself to be practicing, he never wants to sin, right? So in order to save this guilt of feeling the sin, a man usually justifies the sin to himself, right? कोई शख्स उस sin को ऐसे justify करता है कि I am only talking to her because I want to invite her to deen eventually, right? And the others who are unmarried, they justify that I want to marry her eventually, right? So they justify. Shaitan makes us justify the sins to ourselves, the sins we commit. So if we are committing a sin and we are justifying that sin to ourselves, we will never be able to give the dawa of that. We will never be able to stop others from that sin ourselves, because we have justified that sin on ourselves. Usually when there is a need to just give dawa or stop others from that sin, we usually, the person who is giving the nasiha usually tries to avoid that question on nasiha or dawa aspect, right? So this is the reality and this is a fact. So if a person is cleaner himself, if a person is sin-free himself, if a person is avoiding various sins, then he's able to do better dawa, better nasiha regarding that. Just similar to a mirror, when a mirror is cleaner, it is able to show the reflection much better. Show the reflection much better. It shows the reflection from various angles, right? आईने की एक और सिफत होती है कि मुख्तलिफ जावियों से, मुख्तलिफ एंगल से वो फ्लॉज को पॉइंट आउट करता है। एक शख्स अगर एक साइड से होकर उसमें अपने आप का रिफ्लेक्शन देखे तो उसको एक साइड के फ्लॉज नजर आते हैं, राइट प्रोफाइल एंड front profile and left profile and top profile and what all, right? So there are various profiles with which you can the mirror points out, or various angles with which the mirror points out the flaws. Similarly, when a mu'min is looking at the other person with purkhulus andaz, with the correct and mukhlis intention of correcting the flaws of the other person, doing islah of the person, he does not look at the other person from one angle or one side. He completely looks at the other person from all aspects, all attributes, all dimensions. He does not only look at the zahiri issues in the other person or zahiri. He does not try to advise the other person on zahiri sins only. He tries to advise the other person on batini sins also. He tries to advise the person regarding the mustahabat also. He wishes for the other person to become the best and the most beloved Muslim and mu'min to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the most beloved ummati of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So the moment sees the other person from various angles and dimensions, just like a mirror actually shows the reflection from various angles and from various angles and aspects, right? It reflects without discrimination, right? शीशे के सामने कोई किसी भी रंग का, किसी भी हाइट का, किसी भी जिसामत का, किसी भी तरह का इंसान आ जाए, शीशा हमेशा उसको उसकी हकीकत डिस्क्रिमिनेशन के बगैर दिखाता है. There is no rule set on the mirrors that person who is of a particular color or particular nationality or a particular physical appearance, a mirror is not going to show a reflection for that person, right? Right? So this is the exact same sifat a mu'min also had. The mu'min never discriminates when helping others, when serving others, when doing khidmah of others, when focusing on others, right? it isn't emotional, right? The mirror isn't emotional when advising the others. That means the mirror does not actually uh, the mirror actually does not point out the flaws by giving wastas, right? Imagine if the mirror laughs at you while pointing at the stain on your nose, or sneers at you and calls you filthy nosed, right? Or nosy inky, or tells you that it just proves how clumsy you are, or asks you how in the world did you end up having your nose inked, right? The mirror is not emotional. It does not give you emotional vastas, right? While pointing out the flaws, balke it does it unemotionally, without emotionally blackmailing you or without emotionally engaging you. When correcting others, uh, it says exactly the amount that is required to say in order to correct, right? And it does not emotionally engage the other person in order to correct the flaws. Just very similarly, when a moment is giving dawa or doing nasiha or advising others, he does not do it, right? If he finds out the flaw of the other person, for example, if the other person, he finds out that the other person is watching movies, right? Non-mahram women for a woman. A man is watching non-mahram women in movies. The other person does not go, oh इतना बड़ा गुनाह करते हो तुम, क्या करोगे आखिरत में जलते रहोगे, ऐसा गुनाह तुमने कर कैसे लिया, तुम्हारे अंदर जुर्रत कैसे हो गई, ऐसी बात नहीं करता मोमिन। मोमिन की सिफत है कि उसको प्यार मोहब्बत से, पुरखुलूस नसीहत से, अच्छे तरीके से, सॉफ्टली केयरिंगली, विद अ लॉट ऑफ हिकमा एंड फोरसाइट, explain this very pleasantly and very nicely, and points out and tells him the benefits of not watching a movie. Tell him that there's a lot of sawab if you spend that time instead of watching a movie, doing tilawa instead of watching a movie, right? So Momin is very caring and understanding and pur hikmat and non-emotional when doing nasiha. The last point is people never get angry at the mirror for serving its purpose, right? When the mirror points out the flaws in me, points out that I have a torn shirt that I did not know about, I never get angry at the mirror. I don't pick up a stick and start beating the mirror up, right? I don't get angry, I don't curse or abuse the mirror, I don't get angry at the mirror, right? That is how a mirror is. People don't get angry at it, right, for pointing out the flaws in them. Just exactly, very similarly, a moment does not get angry at a fellow moment when that moment points out the flaws or doesn't give nasiha or advises a person regarding anything in him, regarding the controversial attributes that person has, regarding the issues that person has. This is the same sifat that a moment has, that a mirror has, that a moment should also have, that we should not get angry at fellow moment, fellow people, fellow friends, fellow believers who are trying to advise us and correct us. We should take it positively. We should take it as a blessing that the other person actually cares about us. अगर कोई शख्स हमें नसीहत करे या हमारे अंदर जो जो गुनाह हैं, जो फ्लॉज हैं, उसको करेक्ट करने की कोशिश करें, उसकी इस्लाह करने की कोशिश करें, तो हमें उस शख्स पर गुस्सा नहीं होना चाहिए। हमें उस शख्स को बुरा भला नहीं कहना चाहिए, उस शख्स के बारे में बुरा नहीं सोचना चाहिए, बल्कि ये सोचना चाहिए कि ये तो अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से रहमत बन के आया है। अल्लाह ताला ने इसको हमारे लिए भेजा है कि वो हमारे अंदर जो गुनाह हैं, हमारे अंदर जो फ्लॉज हैं, उनको पॉइंट आउट कर रहा है, हमारी इस्लाह की फ़िक्र करता है। ऐसे शख्स को तो हमें बल्कि गले से लगा देना चाहिए, ऐसे शख्स को हमें बल्कि इनाम देना चाहिए, ऐसे शख्स को बल्कि हमें रिस्पेक्ट करना चाहिए, ना कि ये समझना चाहिए कि ये तो हमारे अंदर अयूब निकाल रहा है, ज़रूर ये हमारे अंदर ऐब निकाल के मज़े उठाता होगा, इसको तो ऐब जोई का शौक है, राइट? हमारा मजाक उड़ा रहा है, ऐसी चीज सोचनी नहीं चाहिए, बल्कि उसका एहसानमंद और शुक्रगुजार हो जाना चाहिए। एंड दिस वाज द general approach towards of the Sahaba towards those people who would actually come to them and point out, give them nasiha and point out, give them advice regarding the flaws and issues that were there, right? So this is how it is, and this is how it was. Inshallah, this is the end of the lecture. The point over here yet again, in essence, is that we should try to learn how al-mu'minu miratul mu'min applies to us, and try to understand the various dimensions of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to do aman on whatever was taught today and whatever we discussed today. Jazakumullah khair wa ahsan jaza. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.